Can you hear me okay, Dallas? Is that better?
That is better, and we are live.
Great. If you could go ahead and pull up our presentation for tonight, that would be great. And we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, Dallas, and welcome everyone to our virtual neighborhood meeting for the Somerset Village project. This is an annexation and concept plan, as well as a land use amendment. And we'll talk through what that means here in just a second. Do want to welcome everyone. Again, we are doing this neighborhood meeting virtually, so I appreciate those of you who are joining us on our city's YouTube channel. We'll go to the next slide, please. I'm going to take just a second to run through a meeting agenda, and then we'll get into the specifics for the project for this neighborhood meeting, which is, I know, what you are all here for. First, my name is Erin Fosdick, and I'm a principal planner with the city of Longmont. I'm going to be facilitating the neighborhood meeting tonight. I'm also joined by Dallas, who is our digital engagement specialist, and he's really the brains behind the technology. So thanks, Dallas. You won't see him on camera, but we couldn't do this without him. So thank you very much. Also joined by our applicant, Jack Bestall, who will introduce himself in just a second. And he's really going to be doing the majority of the presenting, as this is his project. I'm going to go through in just a second and let you know how you can call in with questions or comments. We'll take time to go through the project, and the applicant does have a presentation that he'll go through. And then I'll come back on and talk a little bit about the process and what you can expect in terms of noticing and subsequent applications and decision-making for this application type. And that'll include some next steps. We'll take a short break and we'll put some information up that gives you an idea of how to call in to this meeting with questions and comments. I know we have a lot of interest in this project. And so while we don't have specific time limits like city council, we do ask that you're respectful to your friends and neighbors. And if you have multiple questions, that's completely fine. We can take as long as we need, but maybe limit your initial question or comment to one or two and then get back in the queue. And I'll let you know how to do all of that when we get to that section of the meeting. Also want to mention that this meeting is being live streamed on the city's YouTube channel, which means that it will exist after the meeting is over. So if you have neighbors that maybe couldn't attend tonight, or you are worried that you missed something, a recording of this meeting will exist on the city's YouTube channel and you can go back and view it later. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, after we go through the presentation from the applicant and talk a little bit more about process and next steps, we'll take a short break and give you an opportunity to call in with your questions and comments. You don't need to worry about writing all of this down. We will display this information again at the end, but I do like to just give people an idea of what to expect. When we give you the cue, you will call in using this toll-free number. You'll enter the meeting ID, which is displayed here and will be displayed again. And then Dallas will call on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. Best idea is to mute the live stream. You'll hear everything through your phone, but if you don't mute the live stream, it creates a pretty nasty feedback. So mute the live stream, listen through your phone. When the last 3 digits of your telephone number are called, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask your question, provide your comment. Again, I'll remind you of all this when we get to that section of the meeting. If you have additional questions, you can get back into the virtual queue and you'll just use *9 to indicate to us that you have additional questions. And that way Dallas will know to call on you again. So again, I will go through all of this again when we get to that section of the meeting. But with that, I'll ask Dallas to go to the next slide. And I'm going to go ahead and ask the applicant to come on screen. He can go through his slides and then I will come back on and talk a little bit more about process. Jack?
Thanks, Erin. I'm going to, first of all, glad to be here this evening to introduce this project to you. My name is Jack Bestall. I'm the owner's representative and planner for this project, and we've been working on this for actually about 2.5 years. We've notation the project as Somerset Village, and it's on a 38-acre parcel. Originally Kanemoto Estate subdivision. Next. Here you can see an overview of the project. It's in a subdivision that has two lots with 1 house each, and then it is wrapped on the north and on the east primarily by an agricultural conservation easement that Boulder County Open Space holds. You can see Clover Creek to the north, Airport Road to the west, and just a part of the Xilinx property campus to the east. Next. This is the subdivision, Kanemoto Estates. You can see the two parcels and the agricultural easement around those parcels. Next. We looked at this, and a couple of people already have asked, why are you doing this and so forth. And really, it really relates strongly to our valuation of the property, what the opportunity was, what it was being used for currently. And we've been working in Longmont for the last few years. And I think that we've started to see this as an opportunity in terms of how to address community needs and goals. Yes, we're developers, but we also really like to do our work on properties where we can align with community policy wherever possible and address needs. So right now, in the Envision Longmont plan and in discussions that are going on consistently, Longmont's really becoming a very diverse community. Age, income levels, and ethnicity play into that diversity. There's a real need to maintain and grow the economic base. The town has a limited area in which new development can grow. So really there's a lot of infill capabilities. This is one of the vacant parcels or less developed parcels that has the opportunity to achieve some of the Envision Longmont plan goals in terms of business, jobs, revenue. It also will provide sustainable living opportunities. We're looking at energy conservation, home ownership, and social equity in terms of attainable housing. And really what's happening a lot right now in Longmont is that you can work here, but a lot of times people aren't able to live in Longmont. Next. So that was put together into a planning framework to address some of those issues. Next. And the opportunity really started to come together in terms of a sustainable plan. So this parcel's in the Longmont service area and the planning area. In other words, it can be served. And it was always, it's in one of the planning areas where the council could refer this and consider it for planning, for annexation and planning. The size of the parcel, it has access and nearby employment, also made us think about how to best develop it. And so we see this really as a partnership with Longmont to try to achieve a diverse housing mix on the property, to look at attainable ownership and equity in that attainable housing. We think we can work to decrease the carbon footprints through energy conservation guidelines. We've incorporated an early childhood development program as a part of the development project, and we also think this will really create a live near work opportunity, which would definitely support Longmont's economic base. Next, please. This is the parcel according to the Envision land use plan, and you can see the yellow to the top, the north, is Clover Creek. That is a land use of residential. It's single family, and the density is 1 unit per 8 to the acre, according to that designation. The beige, the square to the south of that, is the Somerset project, and that's currently a land use of 1 per acre. So to annex this, we would need rezoning, and we also would need probably an amendment of this land use plan. Go ahead. This is the concept plan that we've developed with two entrances actually on Airport Road. The northerly one on Airport Road to the left there would be the signalized intersection, a main drive into the project. You can see there's a village support area up front on the west. To the right of that, there's a community center. The childhood development area is to the south. And there's circulation also that goes towards Clover Creek. And we want to talk about that some more. We know that's a concern. Next. This shows the land use mix of different single family, paired, some fourplex cottages, and a limited number of apartments. These would be owned and some rental, as well as a general store on the childhood development. Next. This also shows the plan in context with its land use densities in terms of the relationship it has to the other parcels around it. You can see, for example, Clover Creek with Blue Stem to the north. Our densities and the type of residential would be similar to what's in Clover Creek. There would be a minimum amount of commercial on the front edge, and we can talk about that as we go through it. Also, you can see the large gray and red areas to the east and northeast, which are employment and commercial. Next, please. This is an enlargement of that. It shows again that the basic backbone system. And I want to emphasize this really is a concept. We understand that there's going to be some revisions and some refinements of a plan like this. We understand that this was kind of our best way to formulate the concept at this stage. And the brown area along Airport Road on the southwest edge, those are fourplexes, for example. What we've tried to do is go with development that has a detached character throughout, and the densities are just over about 8 units to the acre gross. Go ahead. This is an illustrative plan which shows the detached units in the north neighborhood. The middle neighborhood to the bottom there to the east are cottages in a walkable campus environment, and the west neighborhood has the fourplexes that I mentioned, and the village support there to the along the main drive in. Okay. Next. The village support, it has this is really an area for childcare and a general store. When we have a commercial color, that's basically what's here. It also is really an opportunity to be a hub for the community. Next. So it's really, we would have a ride share plaza there for transit, potentially ride share, and the general store, as I've mentioned. And this shows generally the character of what we're trying to do. Next. The scale and character of the buildings, the general store there on the right side. Next. The community center is in the center actually of the village. Next. Character of that, it's really a focus for recreation and gathering for this neighborhood. Next. This is a repurposing of the existing home, which was the Kanemoto parents' home. And we've just looked at it and we think we can repurpose this. But the main point, I guess, is that this will carry forward the concept that we do want a community center. And this might well be a good location to be able to house that. Next. The north neighborhood is alley served. So all of the garages are on the rear of the lots. And then there are streets, of course, fronting the houses. Some have shared driveways. And it's a combination of single family detached homes with shared garages on the alley side. And of course, adjoining the playground and so forth. Next. This shows some of the character and the studies we've started to do on the size of the home. This is definitely an opportunity for compact development, a low carbon footprint, and smaller homes that are more in keeping with trying to achieve some of the attainable housing goals that we have. Next. This is a view of the streetscape, tree lawns along the frontages, porches, and the garages with some second level ADUs you can see on the left side. Next. The middle neighborhood has cottages with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Next. These are clustered with activity centers and open space throughout the cottages itself. Next. This is a view of one of the play fields with the cottages in the background there and a gathering spot over to the left, to the east side there. Next. The Children's Center concept is being carried forward with the repurposing of the second home that was there existing. And it's abutting the fourplexes there. You can see to the west, and the cottages on the right or the east side. Next. We see this as a real opportunity. There's some excellent early childhood development centers in Longmont now. We've had some very preliminary talks with them to get some of their ideas, but we think this is very important for sustainability. It's an aspect that often goes unnoticed, and we're looking at this to see if we can integrate this into the program for the project. Next. This is the south home. This is almost exactly how it looks now, with the garage doors there on the lower level. Could be a really good play space and a great location for at least part of the early childhood development program. Next. Coming back to the north neighborhood, and this is the line, the property line that runs between Clover Creek and Somerset Village. You can see the colored area on the south, the yellow green edge there. That is the Somerset Village property line, and from the colored area to the north is about an 80-foot property that the Clover Creek HOA owns, and that's the trail that Clover Creek residents have there in that open space. You can also see this connection that people have been expressed concern about, both the trail, the open space, and the access there. And this is something we can talk about more. Basically, the city engineering group felt that it was important to show an access here. It's really not our preference to do this, but we think that because they requested it, we put this in and we've put it into our traffic study. But I think there's other ways to maybe go about this, and we're cognizant of the concern about introducing traffic both into Clover Creek, but also Clover Creek traffic being introduced into Somerset. You know, that there's a trade-off there. And I think that that's something we really want to work on with residents of Clover Creek. I also wanted to mention that the property lines are 80 feet apart, but the lot lines are where you see the detached in Somerset. You know, we're about 130 to 150 feet, depending on where you are, separated in terms of the actual buildings. There's a 20-foot landscape buffer in the colored area immediately adjacent the HOA area there. And then that's about a 30-foot wide road with the tree lawn to the south of that, or to the bottom. So there's about 130 to 150 feet, again, depending on where you are on that location. Next. So that's the illustrative plan, and that's the concept that we're launching with you, and we are looking forward to getting your comments. Next. In our effort to see what the potential could be here, not just for development, but really to look and see, you know, in terms of an agricultural easement, what that could be done in terms of what the needs are for the adjacent community, the city of Longmont. We think these are proper things to measure the plan by. You know, what are the sustainable elements? Is it responsive to the community vision? Does it have compact development, which will use less land to achieve some of these important goals? Is there housing diversity? Is it attainable? Where's the social equity in this project? Can we get a reduced carbon footprint through energy conservation? Early childhood development program, I think, needs to be also considered on site. And of course, this overall should support the economic base. Right now, there's a lack of housing for staff and for workers that currently work at businesses in Longmont. Go one more, I think, next. Next. So we appreciate the opportunity to present this to you and look forward to your comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. So before we go to questions and comments, I want to take a minute and talk about next steps and process. Obviously, that was a lot of information, some of which is probably a bit down the road in terms of building design and things of specific uses and things. So what we're here having the neighborhood meeting for tonight is the annexation and concept plan and land use amendment. So as the applicant mentioned, this area is currently designated for rural residential, and the applicant is intending to have more of a single family and mixed use product type. So we would amend the comprehensive plan. That application can run concurrently with an annexation and concept plan submittal. A concept plan is required anytime there's an annexation because that's really what we use to give the property zoning. And so that's the application that we're here discussing tonight. If the applicant chooses to submit an application, and this neighborhood meeting is required prior to any application being submitted to the planning department, it will go through full development review committee review. So that's an acronym known as the DRC that you might hear me refer to. The DRC is comprised of numerous city departments, including planning and building, public works, so engineering, water, wastewater, stormwater, public safety, fire, police, housing, Longmont Power, Nextlight, myriad city departments that will take a look at this annexation concept plan and land use amendment, make sure it meets city standards, make sure it meets the rules of our code. There'll likely be multiple iterations of review prior to the DRC making a recommendation. Once the DRC feels that the application is ready to be scheduled for Planning Commission, they will make a recommendation, and that this application will then go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a recommendation. I want to note that when the applicant submits this application, if you received a notice for this neighborhood meeting, you'll also receive a notice that the application was submitted. We'll also have the applicant post signs on the property, a sign similar to the one that was submitted or posted for this meeting. Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommending body on these types of land use applications. And so what that means is that they'll hold a public hearing and they'll make a recommendation to City Council. Again, you would receive a notice. We would post a public hearing sign for that meeting. And that's a little bit down the road. City Council is the decision-making body on this type of application. City Council has heard the annexation referral. So the applicant has asked City Council if it's possible to submit an application for annexation. And that's why we're here having this neighborhood meeting. But City Council will ultimately be requested to decide if this property should be annexed with the requested zoning and if the comp plan should be amended. At that meeting, again, we would provide a notice of a public hearing, and there would also be a sign posted. So additional opportunities for involvement, although as I tell folks most often, please get your comments to us earlier than the City Council hearing, because it's much easier to incorporate feedback at this stage. I will also mention that I have received comment. I know some of you emailed the Longmont Planning email, and I have received those emails. I've passed them along to the applicant. If this applicant submits an application, which is typical after a neighborhood meeting, and we schedule this, there will be a different planner that will be assigned to this project, and that would be included in that notice. So I'll make sure to send all of the correspondence that I've received to date to that planner, and you'll get that additional contact information. Assuming this application gets submitted and makes its way through the process and the property gets annexed, there's additional applications and review that'll take place. And I'm not going to necessarily go through all of those steps right now, but I know there was some questions, and I spoke with a few folks earlier today, so thought it would be worth mentioning. Assuming a property is annexed to the city and it gets city zoning, a property owner and applicant can then go through the process of subdividing the property and creating lots. And in order to do that, they have another major development application, a preliminary plat that goes to Planning and Zoning Commission. Assuming that gets approved, an applicant can then go through and do a final plat, potentially do a site plan submittal. There are some public improvements and infrastructure that needs to be installed. So there's separate processes for all of those things. And then ultimately all of that leads up to building permits being reviewed for and construction. But always important to give folks an idea that this is a multi-step process. Assuming this applicant submits and city council approves the annexation, we will not, see buildings at the end of this year. So just want to give folks an idea of time frame, because I know that's always a question in people's minds. The other thing I will mention, because it's come up and I assume many folks have questions on this, is that connection. And Jack mentioned that roadway connection to Clover Creek South, which is just north of this property. I took a look at the files from that subdivision, which I think was approved in early 1997. And interestingly, there is an easement that goes across what is Outlot G that the HOA in Clover Creek owns. And the easement is reserved for future right of way. So that is likely when Jack mentioned the information he was given from Public Works that wanted to create that roadway connection, where that came from. As part of the DRC review, this applicant will be required to do a traffic study, will be required to evaluate ingress and egress, emergency access, all of those things. So this is certainly something, a decision hasn't been made. Certainly, I think the number of comments that we've received already would definitely encourage us to take another look at this. So I did just want to mention it. There is something on the existing plat for this neighborhood. I assume many of the viewers we have tonight are from Clover Creek. So that's why that is shown. Again, our DRC can evaluate that. We can certainly have additional conversations with property owners in the HOA in this neighborhood and see what is going to make the most sense, what's going to meet our code requirements. And certainly if you have additional questions, we can talk through those tonight, but I thought it might be prudent to let you know that that's what's on the plat. And that's why I'm assuming Public Works indicated to the applicant that they'd want to see that connection. So with that, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. The time has come for us to hear from you. And so we're going to take about a 4-minute break. And this will be your opportunity to call in. Again, you can see the toll-free number here. When you're prompted, enter this meeting ID 885-6800-1273. If you're prompted for a participant ID, you can hit the pound or hash symbol. As a reminder, again, if you're watching the live stream, which I assume you are, please mute it or turn it off once you call in, and you'll just hear through your screen. Dallas will call on you on the last 3 digits of your telephone number. Obviously, we don't have a sign-in sheet tonight because we're virtual, so we'd appreciate it if you would just state your name and address for the record. Again, we do not have a specific time limit, but we do have several viewers tonight, and we have quite a few viewers that I assume will have questions and comments. So just to make sure we're respectful to everyone, go ahead and limit your initial question or comment to 1 or 2, and then you can get back in the queue. And again, you can do that by hitting *9, and it will raise your virtual hand, and we'll know that you want to be called on again. So I will facilitate the question and answer. We have plenty of time to go through everything. If it's a process question, I will try to answer it. If you have specific questions about the project, I will refer those to the applicant, and we will go from there. So with that, we'll go ahead and take about 4 minutes, and we look forward to your comments and questions shortly.
Hey, Aaron, we are about 15 seconds out from that 4-minute mark. I'm still seeing callers trickle in. But yeah, if you and Jack are here, we can get going whenever you're ready.
Yeah, that sounds good, Dallas. If maybe we could just leave the meeting open, just to make sure folks can call in if they need to, and then you can drop the slide.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can put that back up real quick.
Yeah, if you're still seeing people come in, maybe we can just leave that up for another minute or so. If I don't know how it is on your end, I don't want to ask you to do too much multitasking, but if you want to start calling on folks that are in the queue, that's completely fine with me.
Sure thing. Give me just a second because
Okay.
yes, we are getting more in, and I
Thanks.
am making sure that I get everyone's number down so that we can keep track. Okay. With that, we will start with caller with the last three digits 554. Caller 554. If you hit *6 to unmute yourself, please come on so you can chat. Caller with the last three digits 554. Please hit *6. All right, we've got a lot in the queue tonight, so I'm going to keep moving. Caller with the last three digits 036. Caller 036. If you would hit *6 on your device to unmute yourself, please. Caller with the last three digits 036. Hey there. Hello, we can hear you.
Hi. Oh, I have a weird echo between my computer and my phone. Sorry.
Yes, please mute your device because we're getting a little bit of that feedback too.
I just want to comment that I think this is very, very dense, and it's a big change from the rural zoning that we currently have. And I hope that the developer will reconsider this compact plan. I think it's going to cause traffic, and I just think it's going to be bad for Clover Creek.
Thank you for your comments. I'm sorry, can you state your name just so we have for the record?
Sue Hahn, I own 3523 Blue Stem.
Thank you so much.
All right, and we're going to move to the next caller. Caller with the last three digits 554. Caller 554. If you are there, would you please hit *6 to unmute yourself? Caller with the last three digits 554. If you would hit *6 on your device, please. All right, we're going to keep on going. Caller with the last three digits 275. Caller 275. Would you please hit *6 to unmute? Caller 275, if you're there, please hit *6 to unmute. All right.
Yes, this is Melissa Barker. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Caller 275, if you're there, please hit *6 to unmute. Do you mind muting your live stream and then just listening through your device?
Yep.
Thanks.
Yes, I just did that. Okay. Sorry, it's a lot of things at once. Did you want my address as well?
That'd be great. Yes.
3515 Blue Stem.
Thanks, Melissa.
And yeah, I have several concerns about this and a couple of questions. I would say, first of all, I agree with the previous caller that this is quite a change from, as all of us who bought homes here 10, 15 years ago understood that there is a conservation easement on the land. And so my first question is, how does that just get negated? We knew that there was potential that there might be a rural development, but never was there a chance of sort of this high density 350 plus units, which I don't think was mentioned in the presentation. So I guess, yeah, the conservation easement question is significant for me. I want to just also, before you answer that, state that, it's as all the farm fields in Longmont are being developed, it's one of the few areas where we have a really healthy raptor population. And we have nesting owl, great horned owls, harrier, ferruginous hawks, red tails actively hunt that field all the time. I know this because I watch them daily. And know that there are a lot of folks around this area. So I do feel like it's a significant consideration for where we are, and feel like the area has really changed and every field is seemingly getting developed. So it'd be super disappointing to see this field also go that direction. And definitely, not for a cut through the neighborhood, which basically intersects this amazing green space walkway that we have, that really is a huge character of our neighborhood. And that would be really sad to see that intersected as well. Can you answer the conservation easement question?
Sure, Melissa. I'll mention this was part of a transfer of development rights program with Boulder County. So you are correct that at some point it was envisioned that it could have additional development. But you are also correct that there's a conservation easement. And I'll ask the applicant to talk about, that's something that that the city would, obviously the county actually would require that be released prior to development occurring. And so I think the applicant is in conversations with the county. Jack, I don't know if you have additional information to share on that.
Yeah, that's right. The county, Boulder County Open Space is we've been talking about this with them for a couple of years, and we're currently moving forward to form an agreement. It would be necessary for us to purchase that conservation easement, and it was a part of a transfer development rights, like Aaron said. It also is an area that they've looked at before, and in the referral we're I think okay with it going for development at this point. I think you're right about the agricultural fields in terms of there are changes. There aren't very many changes that can occur within Longmont, would be my only comment about that. And there is a lot, maybe the most conservation of agriculture and open space in Boulder County immediately adjacent to this. So that's really the trade-off, I think. Our project in terms of density, Clover Creek is approximately 5.9 units to the acre. And, it's a rough estimate that we've done looking at the plat. This adjacent, your Clover Creek, is about the same density. Overall, it's about 8.9. So that's just as a reference.
Thank you, Jack. And Melissa, the only thing I would add, because we don't have an application, we haven't had any required studies, but typically through annexation and really through any subsequent development that would occur, we would require habitat and species studies. Yeah, Jack, you may have done that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's a good prompt. We have completed a natural resource assessment of the property within a very good environmental firm. And we're also conducting other studies in terms of natural resource environmental aspects. So I neglected saying that.
Thank you for that. Melissa, if you have additional questions, you can hang on the line and then jump back in the queue. Dallas, do you want to try 554 again? If the caller ending in the last three digits, 554, wants to hit *6 and try to unmute.
Sure thing. Yeah, caller 554. Right now, I am asking you to unmute. If you were there, caller 554, do you want to hit *6 to unmute for us, please?
Okay, Dallas, we can go down the line. We'll come back. It seems like there may be an issue with that
Sure.
phone.
All right. Caller with the last three digits, 275. Caller 275.
I think
Please
that
hit.
was Melissa. Dallas. I think we're at 540.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
I apologize. Thank
that's
you.
okay.
It's bouncing around. I appreciate the catch up. Yes, caller 540. Caller with the last three digits, 540. If you would hit *6. Hey there. Can you hear us?
Hello.
All right, we can hear you. Great.
Go ahead.
My name is
540.
James Potter. Yeah, hello. Name is James Potter. I'm at 3401 Blue Stem Avenue. I'm the lot directly north of the proposed access point that would cut through into Clover Creek South. So, first and foremost, do not want that. You know, I don't know where to start. Don't necessarily want to look out the back window and see a neighborhood in the first place. But the access through to the neighborhood here is going to be a real point of contention. The density of that proposed neighborhood is twice that almost of ours, looking at 350 some units. We probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 147 in our neighborhood. And I just can't see anyone from that neighborhood that wants to go to King Soopers first going out on the airport road, then over, then down Pike. It's going to be right through our neighborhood. It's not a direct shot through our neighborhood. They will either have to take a turn on Blue Stem and then Clover Creek, or straight across down, I believe it's Mountain, and then they have to take a little turn at the end. So a lot of traffic through here is not going to be ideal. So I'm curious about the traffic study that you mentioned. I also want to bring up back in 06, 07, when there was some talk of a low density neighborhood across the way of an emergency access only, very similar to Willow Creek neighborhood, which is at the northwest corner of South Fordham and Clover Basin. There is a emergency access in the back of that neighborhood that allows emergency vehicles to come in off of North 89th and Nelson. So if the city needs another way in that will mitigate traffic, that should possibly be looked at, but we wouldn't want it to be there in the first place. As a previous caller said, cutting through the green belt, our sidewalk, not satisfactory. And then the other thing I'd like to find out, I saw a little bit of the drawing from Jack, was the types of stuff being used, the types of homes that will be directly on the south side of our neighborhood. There's some comments in the paperwork about a maximum building height of 35 foot, but then it says additional height may be allowed in the residential mixed use. So question there for him. Thank you.
Thanks, James. I will just note that the height limit is really by our zoning districts. And so the code allows in our residential zoning districts 35 feet in residential mixed neighborhood and residential single family. Jack, I don't know if obviously you have a well-developed concept if you want to provide any additional information on building types.
Sure, be happy to. The immediately adjacent Clover Creek, so the north side of Somerset, is single family detached, with the exception of a block of paired homes, duplex, which are also single family detached in terms of scale and height. We don't have any interest in going over 35 feet throughout the entire property. So, that's not we think 35 feet is sufficient. And particularly in the single family detached area, most of our residential is detached, frankly. It's either duplex, which is the same size as a single family home. It's single family homes. It's cottages, which are smaller, but they're all detached. And then we have the fourplexes that I mentioned out towards Airport Road to the south. And they're like large homes in a way. They're a 4-unit large home, but they're also detached. They're 2 levels plus a garden level. And so that's kind of the character and the scale we've tried to go to. And I share the same concern you have about access and circulation through. An emergency vehicle only, it seems to me, would benefit maybe both properties. And so I share that view.
And again, we can certainly flag that, and that's something that the Development Review Committee can take a look at. I think James noted that's something in other projects that we have done where there's really only emergency access and it's not through for vehicle. So that's something that can be evaluated. James, if you have additional questions, feel free to stay on the line and you can hit *9 to get back in the queue. With that, we can go down the list.
Sure thing. Yes, we're at caller 793. Caller with the last 3 digits 793. Would you please hit *6 to unmute? Hey there. Can you hear us?
Hi, Lisa Crawford, 3531 Blue Stem Avenue. So those of us that bought these houses on Blue Stem, we paid more for these. We paid for the peace and the privacy that we have here. Am I right? Anybody want to make some comments about that? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure we did that. And then, it's safer for kids at this lower end, the neighborhood without a bunch of traffic going through. It's safer for kids to ride their bikes around here too. And I didn't get on soon enough, but can you tell me again, please, where they will be building exactly, like the other side of the drainage ditch or this side of the drainage ditch? I would like to know about that.
So Lisa, we, just for your info, since it sounded like you joined a little bit late, we do have this presentation recorded. And so you can definitely take a look at the full presentation. Right now, what we're looking at is annexation, zoning, concept plan, and land use amendment. So there's not actually building permits or anything being reviewed.
Okay.
Jack, I don't know if you want to provide kind of I don't necessarily want you to go through the whole presentation again, but does that question make sense on which side of the drainage ditch that you could easily answer for Lisa?
Maybe. Lisa, are you speaking of the drainage ditch that's in the open space south of you?
Yes, it's basically on the farmer's land, I believe.
Oh, the ditch that's right on the Somerset property. Yeah, our development from the ditch. So yeah, it's the one that runs right along the edge of our property there. So it'd be the south side of the 80-foot open space that you own, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we're developing south of that. So it would be there's a 20-foot landscape buffer starting at the ditch going south. This is what the plan shows. And then there's a roadway about 30 feet wide with a tree lawn before you get to lots that are in our project. So, it's about 150 feet from the lots at Clover Creek, and about 50 feet south of the ditch is where, we'd have landscape, then we'd have the roadway, then the houses are about 50 feet from the property line.
Then are you looking at 2 or 3 stories? Is that what you're thinking about doing?
Yeah, 2 stories for the most part. Is your house 2-story?
I'm a 1-story.
Are there 2 stories in that road though, right?
Road. Yeah, I'm the second house from Airport Road.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it's very similar, that the neighborhood that we're planning immediately 50 feet in from the property line is very similar to Clover Creek, actually, except that it
I have a
has,
question.
go ahead.
I have a question. I've been
Aaron's in
involved in
charge.
lots of different kinds of construction. Okay. Are you going to keep the land fairly level from where it's at now? Or are you going to build up about 10 feet of dirt and then put the house up on top of it? Because I've seen that. They build up the dirt to where it's like way above the neighborhood that's next to it. Then they put the houses on top of a stack of dirt.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? Keep it level, basically where it's at for the most part? They're about close by, or are you going to build it up?
We're not planning to build it up.
Because they do it. They do a lot of the new houses like that.
I think what Erin said, she's in charge of this, by the way. I shouldn't have jumped in, but what Erin said was correct. I mean, we have that level of detail we'll be getting into later in the process, but we're not interested in building it up because it slopes, as you know, our property slopes to the south, and it doesn't really help us to build it up on the north end. To answer your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's all I
Lisa.
got.
All right.
Dallas, can we go back to 554? I think we might have had a little misunderstanding about what the process was. So can we try that one more time?
Yeah, sure. 540. If you're there, you can hit star 6.
540 was James. This was
I apologize.
and James,
554.
Yeah, I see James has his hand up,
Hello?
so we'll go through and then come back. 554 was our first caller, I think. And there might have been an issue with.
Gotcha. James, if you'll hold for just a second, we got about 15 other callers. Sorry about that.
That's fine. I think there's just 554 and 540 issues. So
Yes,
no
lots
worries.
of
I'll go back on hold.
we've got a couple 5-4s and then a number after. So yes, thank you. All right, caller 554. If you would hit star 6. Caller 554, I'm asking you to unmute. We'd like for you to come on and ask your question, please.
And caller 554, if you're having trouble unmuting, you can feel free to email me and I can read your question, into the meeting if for some reason the technology is not working for you. But just so everyone knows, when we're referring to the 3-digit number, that's your telephone number. You don't need a code or anything to get into the queue. So if we call the last 3 digits of your telephone number, you'll just hit star 6 to unmute yourself. You can speak. If for some reason you're having issues and you have my email, which is aaron.fosdick@longmontcolorado.gov, I can take a look at that and read that into the record too. So let's go to the next one, Dallas, and we'll circle back one more time we've got a few more callers, so we can circle back one more time.
Sure thing. Yeah. So caller 872, caller with the last 3 digits, 872. If you would please hit star 6. Hey there. We can hear you.
You got me? Yeah, Michael
Yes.
Lamb, 3524 Foxdale Place here in the Clover Creek area. Hey, I sent an email to both Jack and Aaron earlier about this and my concerns. First, I'd like to say to Jack and your staff, compliment on your presentation, by the way. Nice graphics. I mean, in the first of this, you're talking about why we're doing this project. I mean, the reality is it's about money. If I had that much land, if I had that many millions and millions of dollars to build that, I would like to keep it as a field, but obviously I don't own the property. So one thing you talked to previous caller talked about the property line. That is the fence line on that south side of Clover Creek. We have that. There's a barbed wire, rusty wire fence. That is I assume that's a property line because I see the hubs at the end. What I really want to talk about is more what I sent in with my email is about keeping that south side open and don't put that secondary road through there. I understand, Jack, you kind of understand that. And Aaron, I just really want to push to you, to the staff, basically, and the engineering people. Right now, on our east side, down the south side, and then the west, south, and east side, there is no roads going through that. It's kind of a open area. Everybody can walk around from our neighborhood across the street. People walk that. Dogs. I mean, I walk through that 2 or 3 times a day. So I really don't want to see a road pushed through that. And as I said to you, I'm working with the HOA for here at Clover Creek to get a bike trail in there for the kids, just a dirt thing. You can look that up on my website. Putting a road through that just severs right through the middle of it, bisects it, the loop. And, really, as Jack had said, it's two-way, us going through there and them coming back. I mean, hopefully there's just another option, going to the east on the Somerset property, going through Xylings or somewhere. I would just really hate to see that road go in there for various reasons. So, again, I'm just, pull out now, but to say that's what I'm really pushing for. I'm done.
Yep. I appreciate the follow-up call, and we do have your email. And you're right. I mean, we definitely understand there's a great trail system pretty much adjacent to this whole property. So as I mentioned, this is definitely something we'll have the DRC take a look at. It's not a typical configuration that we would normally see if a roadway was planned. Obviously your HOA owns that property. It's not dedicated right of way. So I think that definitely gives me pause. And I'll communicate that with folks as if we get an application and start reviewing that. Seems like there's probably a more creative way that we could look at this. So definitely hear you and other callers. Thank you. Next caller, Dallas.
Sure thing. Our next caller is caller 400, caller with the last 3 digits 400. Would you please hit *6 to unmute? Hello.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is JC, and my husband Tom is on here with me, and we live at 1903 Clover Creek Drive. I'm looking out my window right now, and I see children outside playing in their yards and in the street. I just want to say that I feel really disappointed, concerned, worried, and disheartened by the plan to develop this space along with my neighbors. I'm concerned about the deterioration of the natural space and the wildlife. I'm concerned about the road and the traffic. And I also just want to comment that according to the information provided, Jack's business is based out of Evergreen, which is a beautiful and pristine and natural area. And it feels disheartening to see somebody who gets to enjoy the natural splendor of that area put their eye on this beautiful open space and plan to develop it for personal monetary gains. So I just want to say that I feel disappointed about that, and I just want that to be. I just want to say that, and now I'm going to let my husband talk.
And so, in addition to that, obviously the cut-through road is a major concern for traffic in this neighborhood, but traffic along Airport and the intersection with Diagonal Highway, there's numerous accidents. It's a pretty dangerous road, very dangerous intersection. People speed along Airport quite a bit already, and adding in any amount of homes, let alone 350 homes, obviously cutting through to our neighborhood would be ridiculous. But even just the additional traffic on Airport would be quite significant, and I think really is something that needs to have a traffic study there too, obviously. And so I'd like Jack to comment on that a little bit. And then additionally, in terms of just the plan for the neighborhood itself, in the illustrative presentation, we saw that there was some open space designated to the south and the east of the Somerset. Well, there was some along the south and some along the east of the Somerset neighborhood plan. And so, you know, when we look at that, we're like, okay, who does that open space benefit? And it benefits like just a few of the homes from Somerset, really. And so wouldn't it be maybe a little more central and dividing from that neighborhood and our neighborhood if maybe that open space was designated to the north side of the Somerset? So there that way you would have even more open space between our neighborhood and your neighborhood.
Which is piggybacking off of what Mike Lamb kind of was just talking about a moment ago.
Additionally, if we move the open space to that side of the property, would it also be conducive to your plans, or at least considered, that you would maybe move all of the one-story homes to that side of the property also, and then designate the higher buildings to the south side of your property? And thereby, because another one of the things that everyone moved to this neighborhood was for the open view. And so when you put houses up, obviously that blocks our view. But if you put more open space and then the lowest homes right there and then the bigger homes, that would at least give us a better chance of seeing the mountains. And the people who live right there, who are the most affected by this, at least their second story would have a pretty unobstructed view of the mountains. I think it's just maybe like something to consider, to sort of a little give and take, right? Anyway, I think that's about all we got. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Casey and Tom. Appreciate your comments.
JC and Tom.
Okay.
It's
Sorry,
whatever, it's
JC
hard
and
to
Tom.
hear.
I was not 100% sure, so thank you for clarifying. Just to reiterate, a traffic study will be required, and you know, certainly the applicant has probably, as he mentioned, been working on this for a couple of years and done a lot of thinking. The city does have buffer requirements, and so I would assume that's why the concept plan shows open space in the locations that it does, because we do have some buffer requirements from adjacent properties and roads and different things. And those are code requirements. We're not quite at the stage where obviously, as I've mentioned several times, we don't have an application, so we're not vetting this against our code at this time. But certainly this project, again, is really for annexation to the city, zoning, concept plan, and land use amendment. So we're not at the point now where we're looking at specific parcels, specific building heights. So certainly appreciate the comments, and the applicant can take those and potentially incorporate them into the site plan. But did want to reiterate, a traffic study will be required with this annexation, as it is with nearly every annexation. Next caller, Dallas.
Sure thing. Our next caller is caller with the last three digits 878. Caller 878. If you would hit *6 to unmute for me, please. Caller with the last three digits 878. If you can hear us, please hit *6 to unmute your device. Okay, we will come back to you 878 in a bit. Caller with the last three digits 037. Caller 037. If you would please hit *6 to unmute. Hey there.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Wes Alvey. Hi, I'm Wes. I'm at 1806 Clover Creek Drive. So others did a great job of covering the open space and conservation aspects. I definitely also share that. On the other hand, walkable and sustainable communities are something that I'm really interested in and passionate about. So I would like to suggest linking the existing Clover Creek neighborhood and the new development only by walking paths and bike paths. This would let Clover Creek residents be able to access the proposed general store, shopping area, whatever, and this would reduce car traffic. Reduced car traffic is highly desirable, both in this neighborhood and also in the new development. As Jack said, traffic will flow in both directions. That's a great point. If we can get people walking and biking rather than driving for quick car trips, like down to the proposed shopping area, that's going to have the effect of reducing demand for parking. Parking is super expensive in terms of square footage and environmental impact. So for all these reasons, I really feel that less car traffic and more walking and biking can actually be like a net economic benefit. Yeah, so that's really my comment, and I wasn't really seeking any input from Jack, but if he does have any input, I would certainly listen to it.
Thanks, Wes. Appreciate your comments. Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, I'm glad you're not seeking any input from me. That's a change. I agree with you completely. I think that an integrated trail system would be ideal. And if it's something that Clover Creek's interested in, that's something we could put our effort to.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Next caller, Dallas.
Sure thing. We're going to be going to the caller 873. So caller with the last three digits 873. If you would please hit *6. Hey there.
Hey, this is Josh at 1919 Clover Creek Drive. How you doing? You guys hear me?
We can hear
Yes,
you,
we
Josh.
can. We're good. Thanks.
Great. So I'm going to echo a lot of the same concerns that my neighbors have. I'd say generally my family, we have a young kid and we're expecting another one. We're pretty much in favor of this development. I'd say our biggest concern is that access point. If there's a way to make that so it was emergency only, I think that would alleviate the majority of our concerns, but we understand there's a need for housing in this area. So for the most part, we're supportive of the development if there was a way to minimize traffic down Clover Creek Drive. I don't really have any questions. I think they've all been answered already, but I just wanted to voice that there is somebody that supports the development as long as we can minimize traffic through Clover Creek.
Thank you,
And
Josh.
those are my comments.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to the next caller. Caller with the last three digits 522. Caller with the last three digits 522. Please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Hey there.
Hello, good evening. This is Chris McKay, 3615 Glennier Drive. My question is about the drainage, particularly the drainage, open drainage that's on the north side of this parcel. The entire Somerset Meadows, Summerlin, and several other developments to the west all currently drain through that particular drainage. I think, Jack, you mentioned that in response to a question, you mentioned that the houses were located about 50 feet south of that. Did that imply that that current type of drainage would remain, or how will you deal with the water that's currently coming from the west? That's my question. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. What we're doing is we're draining everything southeast. So the people that commented a couple phone calls ago about the open space being kind of east and south, part of that is water quality facilities, open space with natural landscape to take up the water, and it would probably be released out the southeast edge of the property. So the water that's coming from the east in the 80-foot, in that 80-foot open space that runs east-west in Summerlin and south of Clover Creek, generally speaking, it's going to go right. That'll go right by the north edge of our property, and I don't think we're detailed enough yet to know if we need to, berm or protect or whatever there yet. But that's the concept we're following for drainage.
And Chris, just as a follow-up to you, as part of our DRC review, we have detailed drainage studies that will be required at the appropriate time. We do have folks that are looking at stormwater and water quality as well. So those things will all be evaluated as part of the development review process.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. And with that, we're going to move on to our next caller. Caller with the last three digits 291. Caller 291. If you would hit *6 to unmute, please. Caller with the last three digits of their phone number 291. If you are there, please hit *6. Hey there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Vic Pease. I live at 1910 Clover Creek, and I have a whole bunch of comments, because we come back later. The first thing is running the trucks. The current plan that you had, at least tentative plan, was running trucks up through Fountain Court, and that's a heavily populated area, and I think that's just completely ridiculous, and that that needs to be stopped. That's very dangerous for the community. I think that shows some real disregard for the people here. At the end of that, there's a park that's where the school buses stop. There's a whole bunch of reasons not to do that. In fact, I think the planners be well advised to look for other ways of getting into the area that they need to work in there. One of them is at the very northeast end of the whole property. There's already an access. That's where the farmer used to drive the machines to cut the grass in through there. That's another part. That access is right onto airport. Now, airport's already busy, but if you're going to put more access, I'd rather have it on airport than through communities. And then, secondly, you might consider for the purposes of building. And this happens a lot of times when people are building various kinds of different things. You establish temporary access, like for example, out the southeast side of that whole property. If you go either directly east or sort of southeast, you get over to 110 or to Fordham, depending upon exactly where you go. You could build a temporary road over there and have trucks go over there. What we do not want is trucks coming through Clover Creek. And there's too many families here. It's too dangerous. And I think it's basically unthinkable that you do that. Or that the city allow that.
Thank you for your,
pretty much what to say for now.
We'll definitely take a look at that. Again, as we've mentioned several times, that'll be something that sounds like the applicant's interested in looking at, certainly hearing loud and clear that the neighborhood is in favor of a different type of connection. So we'll definitely take a look at that through the process. Thank you for your call.
Okay.
Okay, and caller with the last three digits 423. Caller 423, if you would please hit *6 to unmute. Caller with the last three digits of their phone number 423. If you're there, please hit *6 to unmute. Hey there.
Hi. So I have a property at Clover Creek Drive. That's just right north to the development area. I received the notice of this planning meeting and the floor plan. Just wondering, looks like it's quite condensed, quite many properties to be built with that 40 acres. That there is single family house, duplex, and apartment. For the apartment, is that pretty tall building, or how tall it is? The Longmont area, we don't really have very tall apartment buildings. Just kind of like, to maintain the community, the uniformed structure, size, and how big the lot will be. So all those kind of questions. I wish that we don't have such condensed community, condensed population in that small 40 acres.
So I'll go ahead and respond. Certainly the applicant can talk about the development program that they will be planning. I think it, based on what I heard, was single family detached, duplex or paired homes, and then some fourplexes. In terms of building heights, that's going to be regulated by zoning. And I believe that the zoning that the applicant's requesting is residential mixed neighborhood. Is that correct, Jack? Residential mixed neighborhood?
Yeah, we're thinking that that might be the best fit.
And so that would have a height limit of 35 feet, which is similar to what the neighborhood that you live in. It's the same height limit that the neighborhood you live in has. So in terms of tall multifamily, obviously tall is subjective, but it sounds like what you're referring to might be larger than what would be allowed by the zoning that's being requested. So again, for the purposes of tonight, we're really looking at annexation, zoning, concept plan, and land use amendment. So we don't have specific building details at this point. But assuming that this project comes in and is annexed with residential mixed neighborhood zoning, the height limit would be 35 feet. So we couldn't get something that was significantly taller. 35 feet typically would permit up to 3 stories, although I don't know, based on what the applicant said, that they're intending to build that tall, but 35 feet would be the height limit we'd be looking at.
How about the lot size?
So again, the lot sizes is something, as I mentioned, kind of in the subsequent applications, with annexation, zoning, concept plan, and land use amendment. We're not looking at subdividing. That would occur after annexation. And so at that point, the applicant would be required to do what's called a preliminary plat. And that really lays out the actual lots in terms of the dimensions. So how big are the lots? Where are the roads? How big are any outlots? So where are rights of way, where are lots? And at that point, we would know what the, dimensions are of the lots. Certainly our zoning code has minimum lot size requirements, and so the applicant would need to comply with those. But for the purposes of the application that we're looking at tonight, we don't have lot dimensions because we're not at that stage of the process yet.
Oh, I see. So right now the stage is still applying stage. It's the applying is the developer is still applying for the permit.
So this property is within the Longmont planning area. So kind of the easiest way to think about it is in terms of long range planning, we've always envisioned that this property would someday be part of the city, but it's not yet been annexed to the city. And so in order for the developer, the applicant here to do anything further in the city, it needs to go through this annexation process to become part of the city of Longmont municipal limits. And so that's what's being talked about tonight. If city council brings this into the city, then a subsequent application would be to do a subdivision and create lots that could later be built on. So yeah, we're looking at annexation at this point.
Oh, I see. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. Dallas, before you go on, I just want to make a quick note because I got an email from someone, Gary, that unfortunately was dropped. And so I just want to read into the record and I'll follow up with an email, Gary, in case you're watching the live stream still. Do apologize that you were dropped from the call. Concern is with increased traffic along Airport and Clover Basin. Expect that a traffic study would be completed, and that is correct. When an application is submitted, a developer is required to scope a traffic study. And so the parameters of what that traffic study needs to include would be set at that point. I would certainly anticipate that any traffic study would include Airport Road and those adjacent intersections. Obviously this property is adjacent to Airport. In terms of Clover Basin, I'm not sure how far north the traffic study would go. That's a bit further north, but that's a possibility. I am not a traffic engineer. So that's something we could confirm, and I'll definitely copy our development review person that does the traffic studies, and they can provide that additional info. But certainly that traffic study would include volumes and peak volumes, turning movements on Airport Road. So thank you. And again, sorry that you were dropped. I'll follow up with an email. And we can go to the next caller, Dallas.
Sure thing. All right, caller with the last three digits 514. Caller 514, if you're there, please hit *6 to unmute. Again, this is caller with the last three digits of their phone number being 514. Caller 514, if you'd please hit *6 to unmute your device. Okay, we're going to keep going. This one might also be confusing because we have a caller with the same digits as another caller. So caller 549. Oh, hey, caller 514. Can you hear us?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Please mute your live stream in the background, please.
I did.
Thanks.
Okay. So you can hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Mike Posnowski, and I live at 1911 Red Top Court. And when I bought this house in October of 1998, I was guaranteed that they would never put a road through there. Now I know developers lie. Jack can probably back me up on this. But that would be, I want to know, first of all, who owns that piece of land? Because we've been paying to have it mowed and plowed and everything else since we've been here. So that'd be my question.
Sure, Mike, I can answer that. As I mentioned during the presentation, it's really interesting the way that it shows up on the plat for Clover Creek. The property is owned by your HOA. And there's a note that there's an easement normally we would see right of way dedicated, even if a road wasn't built. But in this case, it's shown as an easement for future right of way. And so again, it's a very curious way that this would be done. And I'm not sure, this was recorded back in 1997, a little bit before you bought your house. So that's why I say it's something we definitely are going to want to take a look at in terms of what the intent was and really what we frankly need, because it's, to your point, it is owned by the HOA. It's not dedicated right of way that's been dedicated to the city. The easement is there. We'd probably need to do a little bit of additional research on the language of that because the plat doesn't have a ton of detail. But that's something we'll just evaluate through the DRC process. So it is land that's owned by your HOA. And obviously, as every caller on the call tonight knows, there's, a great trail system that goes through there. You guys have been maintaining that. So that's something we're going to want to take a look at.
Right. So so the HOA has to release it to you?
Well, we'll need to take a look at it. I mean, again, there's an easement that was dedicated with that plat. I didn't research, exactly what the language for that easement was. We'll need to have that additional research done if an application submitted. Yeah, Jack, do you have information to add?
Yeah, Mike, my understanding, and again, I'm not an attorney either, but the easement was provided on your property or on the HOA property, and it was meant to be for access or connecting a road in the future. And that's not our preference. I think I've stated that several times tonight, but I want to be clear. That's not our preference. Because of that being there, the city required us to show that. And it's something that I think we can work through and, maybe an emergency gated access or something, but that would be my preference as well. And I agree with you. Developers do lie. Most people lie. We're all judged. We're all judged by the worst in our profession or our walk of life. And that means that all of us have liars somewhere. So I agree with you. You have to test me to see if I'm one of those.
Okay. It's just that was my whole understanding, is that would never be, because again, we have been taking care of that piece of land for the last 20 years. So it just doesn't seem right. And this is a really nice neighborhood. It's nice and quiet. I mean, we don't have, again, there's no access except for down there off of Pike and Clover Creek, and that's great. It would be awful if we had to have more cars coming through here because I have grandkids that are playing in the parks and riding their bikes in the streets, and I see many people in this neighborhood who have the same. So,
Mike,
yeah,
I have a question for you. Would you see the benefit of an emergency access, a gated emergency access? Just if there was a fire, like in your neighborhood or perhaps in the Somerset area, is that a positive for you?
a gated access would be it would be acceptable, I guess. I really wouldn't want to see anything there, but if that's the best we can do, because I work in an area that has one of those and I know what it is, and I guess I would accept it. I'd have to, I reckon, but I'd just rather it just stay like it is, because we have a nice place here. That's not, but yeah, if it had to be something like that, I guess that would be, but I would have to go to see some board meetings, because wouldn't the HOA board have to kind of agree to that? And again, I know that you guys, okay.
I think again, this is not typically how we would expect to see a planned connection represented. And so obviously I was not here in 1997 and did not work on this plan. I would need to go back through the file. I think it's not right of way that's dedicated to the city. And so there does need to be some involvement by the HOA. I think, it might be a bit premature to talk about what isn't going to happen, because obviously we've had a lot of comments tonight. We've had a lot of comments through email. I think it's fair to say that your neighborhood is adamantly opposed to this connection. Sounds like it's not something the applicant's interested in. So, my recommendation would be that we try to identify a different way to provide access to this development going forward. Certainly it's something I think the DRC can review. I think there's been a few other options that have been discussed tonight. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're providing emergency access. If that's something that public safety requires, we can take a look and evaluate that. They're part of our DRC. But, I'd like to have a conversation with city staff and let people know how contentious, frankly, this single issue is. And if it's not something that's really going to need to be required with this development, I would say let's find a way to not have it. But certainly we haven't been through that extensive review. Want to take a look at the files from your subdivision and see what's there. And then certainly, follow up with the HOA and whomever else needs to be discussed with. But definitely hear you all loud and clear. It seems like this is a pretty unanimous no. If you guys were able to decide. So I definitely appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mike.
I do enjoy this neighborhood, and it would be a shame for it to, 1,000 cars a day or so coming through here. So thank you.
All right. So we're going to go on to caller with the last 3 digits, 549. Again, there are 2 callers with these same exact digits, so I'm only able to ask one of you to unmute. So I apologize to the other one. We'll get to you afterwards. But if your last 3 digits are 549, please hit *6 to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits, 549, last 3 digits of their phone number. Hey there, do you mind muting the live stream?
Hang on a second.
Sure.
Am I on this one?
Yep.
Just a second.
Mm-hmm.
We got dropped earlier, so we had to try to get back in. All right.
No worries.
I got to turn the volume up. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Joe Stasiak, 1911 Clover Creek Drive. Thanks for the presentation. My main comment today, echoed by many Clover Creek residents, is regarding this proposal's plan to remove Clover Creek's essential open space, remove walking paths, and remove sidewalks to put an unnecessary road through Fountain Court alongside the only 2 parks in the neighborhood, and directing new unnecessary traffic into the elementary and middle school bus loading and school bus unloading zones. Additionally, many families have children that frequent the parks, sidewalks, intersections, and streets that this prior undisclosed road would put kids, adults, and the elderly in harm's way. Destroying the south boundary of the Clover Creek neighborhood and opening it up as a high-volume cut-through for traffic outside of Clover Creek, as described by the Somerset Village Planning Workbook and Annexation Cover Letter, will also destroy the security of the neighborhood. I, my son, and other children experienced trauma firsthand by having witnessed the devastating scene when one child was hit by a car on the way to school due to the increased congestion during the construction of a recent nearby development. Valid projected threats to Clover Creek resulting from removing essential open space, walking paths, and sidewalks to replace them with an unnecessary and unexpected road are real threats causing distress, negatively affecting new residents and longtime residents. Speak for many Clover Creek families who are its current inhabitants. We feel that we, as the current tax-paying, law-abiding citizens, have a valid expectation and a valid right to be the primary current consideration. A significant number of Clover Creek residents are opposed to being the collateral damage for this proposed Somerset Village annexation. We believe that we have a valid expectation for the proposed development of Somerset Village to be revised and to be self-contained by withdrawing the access point to the Clover Creek subdivision. Very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is it safe to assume that you're the same I assume this is the same person, Dallas, based on the explanation that they got dropped. I think we have 2 549s, but I think it's the same.
Okay. Yes, that's
okay.
That's possible. If you want, I can.
Yeah, let's
keep
just,
going.
if there is another 549 that didn't just speak, we'll just take a second and make sure we're not missing someone.
Sure. Yeah. They can also raise their hands with *9 if there is another 549 and it's not just for some reason doubling up. Please hit *9 to raise your hand. 549. Because I do see one just left, but I can't tell which one that is since they're identical.
That's fine. Thank you, Dallas.
Sure. Okay, they did both leave. So we do have one more caller before we can go back to some that we missed earlier. Caller 807, caller with the last 3 digits 807. If you would please hit *6 to raise to unmute. Hey there.
Hi, my name is Jeff Engel, and I am the homeowner at 3535 Bluestem Avenue. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to participate in this call. I wanted to echo a lot of sentiments that the other residents in my neighborhood have already made. I'm not a fan of the cut through on Fountain Court. I think that the ease of access it would provide to Somerset comes at the expense of the trail system that our neighborhood currently enjoys. And I plus one the idea of moving the open space at the south and southeast end of Somerset along the northern border, where Clover Creek and Somerset would interface. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Jeff. And Dallas, it looks like we've got 3 people that have their hand raised. If we could go back through, that'd be great.
Yeah. Do you want to do that or go back to the guys that that didn't answer when we called on them initially?
Oh yeah, let's try that. I think we've got 2.
Cool. Yes, caller 554. Caller with the last 3 digits of their phone number 554. Oh, they've just left. Okay, so caller 423. Caller with the last 3 digits 423. If you were there. Not sure. I know we have a check mark. I have a check mark by you, so I'm not sure if you were addressed or not.
I do not think they unmuted. I don't have them down.
Okay.
Real quick, as we're waiting to see if 423 can hit *6 to unmute, I will note that I got an email, which may have been from one of these callers, that expressed similar concerns in terms of vehicle traffic. Also had a question of the price range of homes and affordability. That's not something we're evaluating with annexation, but I will take this opportunity to mention that Longmont has inclusionary housing requirements. And so 12% of any new housing needs to be affordable, and people can either, obviously we wouldn't require someone to let us know how they're satisfying this at annexation, because again, there's no actual units being built at this point. But that's something that would be evaluated at a subsequent phase of development. And so they would either need to build affordable units or pay a fee in lieu to the city to construct units elsewhere. This person also has a concern on wildlife, and has some thoughts on maybe widening the Clover Creek path because of additional use. So it sounds like they're in favor of single family, but think this looks more like multifamily. And then asks if we ever deny annexation requests. I'm assuming they mean the city council, since I am not the decision maker. And that is certainly within council's purview. This is within the Longmont planning area. So as I mentioned, it is intended that it would become part of the city someday, but there are requirements that need to be met in order for that to happen. And city council is the decision-making body, as we've talked about. So just wanted to read that into the record. And with that, Dallas, let's go back through. I think we've got James queued up first at 540.
540, yes. James, if you're there, do you want to hit *6 to unmute? Hey there.
Hello. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it. While just after I talked to you the first time, a neighbor of mine had a good question. She gave me a text. And this might be more for Aaron. Has there been a study, or is there going to be a study about where all these 350 homes worth of children are going to go to school? And before you answer that, my other quick thing was on the proposal that I saw from Jack. There's a main entrance to the neighborhood, and then there's also a south entrance that looked like it was going to be a right hand in, right hand out only, no left turn kind of a situation. It is sort of mid-grade on a hill. That might be a wonderful place for another stoplight, because that's where traffic, once it passes Pike, it's kind of a drag race to get to the diagonal, and the speeds kind of pick up through there. It took over 20 years to get a light at Pike, which we all found to be way too long. But if we're going to have 350 more units, maybe moving the main entrance to the south end of the lot with a light would potentially help. But back to the schools. Where are these kids going to school? Thank you.
So the school district is one of our referral agencies. This property is within Blue Mountain, Altona, and Silver Creek's attendance area. As part of our intergovernmental agreement with the school district, we send referrals for any development application that we get. And they do take a look at the student yield that each type of housing is expected to generate and what impacts that will have on school enrollment over the years. And they share that information with us so that we can make sure we're staying within the terms of our IGA in terms of capacity limits at schools. So again, Blue Mountain, Altona, and Silver Creek. With regard to traffic lights, that's something, again, that would be evaluated as part of the traffic study. We do have spacing requirements on all of our arterial roadways, which is what airport is. And so that's something that could be evaluated based on, yeah, Jack.
Yeah.
I understand. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you please. It's all right. Go ahead.
I understand where the schools are, but do they have capacity for this many more children?
That's what
the short answer is yes. I mean, let me look. I have recent enrollment numbers. None of our schools in Longmont area are at capacity. That's something we'd be able to provide much more detail on if an application is submitted, because the school district runs an analysis on, X number of single family units are anticipated to generate X number of students in elementary, middle, and high school. And they have student yield numbers that they use for each of their different schools. So the short answer is yes, there's capacity. I can look up those enrollment numbers by school district. We'd obviously there's not students that are going to be generated next year. So this isn't something that, again, would happen right now. But we do work with the school district, and, the schools do have capacity for growth.
I was just going to add to that. When we put in when the project gets more real and we're doing the actual development input, and even maybe before that, the school district gives us a detailed report in the referral comments that Aaron mentioned. And, they'll talk about capacity, and they'll talk about what the fees will be for us as the developer that need to be paid, for their, to carry that school requirement. The other thing I was going to mention was on traffic, is that we have done a traffic scoping in preparation for a traffic study, and we were required to do counts up at Pike, and I think we also were maybe as far as the diagonal, to get a grip. But I think that the major street plan for the city requires, based on spacing that also Aaron mentioned, kind of requires that the full movement signal be in the midpoint where we've shown it. And then you have that right in, right out, on the south end. We're open, but those are kind of the marching instructions that we have so far at this point in the process. And I think that many of you may have looked online at our referral submittal, because we haven't really put anything out on the current plan except for what you've seen this evening. It's not 350 anymore. It's in the 330s. And that's just a clarification, because I've heard 350 a lot tonight. But anyway, that's all I had. Thank you.
Real quick,
Thank you much,
James, I'll end with, I just looked at the most recent, the school district puts out an enrollment report every October. And it looks like their October 2021 report shows Blue Mountain at 84%, Altona at 95%, and Silver Creek at 81%. So again, as Jack mentioned, that's something we would work with them on as a referral agency as this got closer, assuming, they submit applications and council approves it, but there is capacity in the Silver Creek feeder system.
Aaron, I have one more comment. Okay.
Sure.
The other thing would be timing, which is, I think you brought that up. If we submit and if we move forward on this and we have approvals, we're probably 3 years out from occupancy. It takes that long to get this kind of stuff done, 2.5, 3 years probably. So that gives adequate time for planning if necessary for the school district.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Dallas, I see Michael at 872 has his hand up.
Sure thing. Yeah, Michael at 872, if you would hit *6 to unmute.
I got it. You got me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Come back real quick. I just want to say thank you to Aaron and Jack for taking your evening to listen to our concerns. I spent my career doing public meetings, so I really appreciate the time you do into this, and I really appreciate that. One thing you discussed about, the HOA, our HOA, last Monday, that evening, I went to the board meeting and saying, what about getting our HOA to work with, your development? And it was like, I got the answer was, no, it's individual people to go with this. It's not the HOA's position. Really frustrated for me. As we go down through this project, I would really like to see our HOA and Somerset somehow work together, so we can do something, the drainage, all that kind of stuff. So, I'm hoping you will reach out to our HOA board members, if I have to get on the board or something. But I would like to work involved with that project. So, just put my thinking out there about that. So, and the last caller, Jack, on all of your questions, good questions from him. Thank you very much. And that's it.
Thank you, Michael. And then we have 878, and for some reason I do not have your name written down. I apologize. Caller 878 with your hand up.
Yes, caller 878. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yep, it's Alan and 3527 Feather Reed.
Thanks.
Well, first off, thank you very much for taking your time to talk with all of us here. I'm also in South Clover Creek, very close to Michael. And, I don't need to go and reiterate what I think, Jack, you're pretty much aware that our stance on the road, and I think that the city is. But I did want to put on the record that I'm very disappointed in the city for putting Jack in a position to go and have to show that road and intersecting. I think that alone has created a lot of disappointment and, quite frankly, probably some anger, especially from, I'm on the west side of South Clover Creek, and obviously a lot of the people have been where they're really going to be affected. I think it's completely unacceptable and not, quite frankly, just disrespectful to the community to even put Jack in that position and then put all of us in that position that now we all have to spend our evening basically reiterating over and over again that that's not acceptable. So I just wanted to make sure that was aware. But to kind of go to the point of the access, I just wanted to also reiterate that I have a 1-year-old. I use this path on a daily basis. Michael mentioned that he has proposed to the HOA putting in a dirt path, which my family is for in some aspect, and it's if there was to be a road, not a road, but if we did the emergency access, would it be possible to have the access where, like, there's the gate, but that, if an emergency vehicle had to drive through, it's not like you're breaking up our sidewalk, basically. Like, they would just drive over the sidewalk into the paved area. And that's my first question. Second question is and this isn't, it's more of a question of, I was part of the HOA board until recently for Clover Creek, and I understand the easement and I deal with that on a daily basis with easements, but I was wondering if, what's the aspect if the project were to move forward and the neighborhood, Clover Creek in this case, was wanting to say bluntly, fight it? What is it's not necessarily a mechanism to go to the developer, but who do you talk to at the city so that if collectively the community wants to have a conversation with the city about this without the developer, who is that person? Who is that department that you would reach out to for that, including the annexation of that land? And that's all I've got. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your call, Alan. Not sure. I mean, this is the venue to start expressing opinions on, sentiments for or against the development. I would say, that the neighborhood or staff is not the decision maker. City council is. So in my mind, that's really the party that's making the ultimate decision. When we do our long range plan, we identify areas of the city that we expect to development someday and contribute and be part of Longmont. So that's what our planning area is. So that's really the time in which we come together as a community to discuss what our long-term vision is, what properties are part of the city, what can be served, obviously with utilities and infrastructure. And so, certainly if this project submits for annexation, again, this is the first step really in that process. There would be a project planner that's assigned to this. That would not be me. And you could certainly correspond with that person. You can also certainly talk with council. You could do that at a public hearing, which that's where this decision would be made, is at a city council meeting through a public hearing. Planning commission would also hold a public hearing. And, oftentimes we hope that neighbors and residents participate in those. I often tell people, and the applicant might not appreciate me saying this, but I think oftentimes it's not as fruitful to try to stop something, or we don't have, oftentimes people will try to submit a petition or something against something. We don't have a mechanism for that. It's not a vote. How many people want this? How many don't? It's a council decision. there's very specific criteria for development applications, although annexation is discretionary. It's really better to take a look at the review criteria and kind of base arguments in that. I think it's oftentimes really good to work with an applicant. Tonight I think has been productive. Certainly there's some things that I've heard, and I hope the applicant has heard, that the neighborhood really wants to see, or doesn't want, maybe more importantly, doesn't want to see, and not that we, the city or the applicants, committing to those. But I think that's really a productive way to have that conversation. Not necessarily like, how can we stop a project, but maybe how can we make it better? How can we come to what are those things that we value the most, and how can we work together? That's really the intention of having a neighborhood meeting prior to an applicant submitting an application. But certainly, yes, reach out to city council. You can reach out to staff. You can always reach out to me if for some reason maybe you're uncomfortable voicing an opinion with the developer in the room, so to speak, the virtual room even. You can always contact me or whomever gets assigned this. Does that answer your question? That was a lot of rambling, Alan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. I did the same thing, so we're even.
Okay.
No, it does. And again, I'm not trying to be like confrontational. It's more of like, look, like, ultimately, Jack, I think that you've obviously heard all this. Everybody, we all know this is the very, very first preliminary, and it could very well be that the next meeting, it's like, yep, we talked to the city and everybody's in agreement that bad idea. We're not showing that, or maybe we're going to show a pathway so we continue this open space that we've all grown to love for years now and whatnot. So definitely does. The question I did have for Jack, and more of a statement, is, there are things of the project that are exciting. Early child care, that would be great. Trying to get my 1-year-old in one currently. But is that a daycare, or what exactly does that envision as? Is that another Primrose as an example, or is that a development center that has an interactive playground and whatnot? Like, what exactly is that? And I just wanted to echo, I think it's a great idea to maybe move the open spaces in between our two, and then we ultimately increase open space for the whole community. But that's all.
Yeah, I think it is more, I'm not totally familiar with Primrose, but I think it's more like a Primrose, where it's more developmental. It's not just a daycare, but it has an educational program, put together with it. And what we're trying to do is collaborate with some of the people that are actually operating these effectively. There are leaders in the community who really are focused on this. We know it's a need. So, we've kind of taken it up. We don't want to, this is one of these things that we want to get the experts in. We don't want it wouldn't be a development run, but it's something where I think we could partner and would be a real plus. And you're on the other topics, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'm happy to meet with people. And a lot of times I can learn a lot, and I can find out ways to better integrate the plan. I don't know about flopping open space from the south to the north, but I certainly am an advocate for the open space that you already have in the trail system. And I think that integrating our trail systems would be a real positive. Anyway, there's other things we could talk about.
Yeah. No, well, I appreciate it. And I think that, thank you for your time. Obviously, this is the first step in this. I deal with development constantly on a more of a construction basis. And I know that this is the first revision. There's going to be many more. And I just hope that on the next one, we can at least all eliminate our biggest concern, which is obviously connecting to our neighborhood, easement or not. And so, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, we have no other hands, at least at present. If anyone does have any final comments, to hit *9. Please hit *9. You can raise your hand for final comments for those that are in our log still.
So Dallas, while we're doing that, I'll just kind of give a closing so folks know. As I mentioned, the next step in the process would be for the applicant to submit an application to the city. A notice of application would go out if that was submitted. And if you received a notice for this meeting, you should receive a notice for the application. We also have an active development log, and we update that monthly. So you can take a look at that if you're interested in what's going on at the city. Obviously, a lot of interest in this proposal. And so really appreciate folks hanging with us tonight. All the callers that we had with questions and comments. As I mentioned, I think there was a lot of constructive feedback. And so hopefully the applicant's able to take some of that. As I mentioned, from the city's perspective, I'll certainly do a little bit more looking into that connection and see even prior potentially to an application being submitted, what the possibilities are for that in the future. If you have neighbors that maybe weren't able to attend the meeting, or I know some of you mentioned you didn't see the whole presentation, we will keep this video on our city's YouTube channel. So if you just Google City of Longmont YouTube, our YouTube channel will come up, and you can just search for Somerset Village Neighborhood Meeting, and you'll see this recording. It would be the applicant's presentation, my presentation, the applicant's presentation, and then this Q&A. So it would be the full meeting. So feel free to share that. And then the last thing I'll say is you have my contact information, you have the applicant's contact information. If you have additional questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us via email or phone. For me, email is the best way to get a hold of me. And we can certainly follow up with whatever kind of response is warranted. But also would like to thank Jack. Thank you for providing such a detailed presentation. And last but not least, thanks to Dallas for multitasking and providing all the technology support. You did a great job tonight. So thank you so much for all of your help. And with that, I think we will close the meeting and wish everyone a great evening.